Welcome. My name is Jennifer Ryan, and on behalf of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation, I want to welcome you to this webinar. This webinar titled Embracing Diversity, a fireside chat on celebrating pride in the workplace, will last approximately 50 minutes and is a pre-recorded session. Before we get started, I would like to thank our 2024 corporate sponsors for their support on hosting events such as this. They support us not because they want their logos up on a screen, but they support the cause, which is to inspire the industry to invest in the development of women of diverse backgrounds and cultures through educational experiences, intentional support, and collaborative relationships. We continue to celebrate Pride Month with an insightful and inspiring fireside chat with our AWWC President, Kimberly George, and Nicole Cabreriza, Senior Consultant, Business Consulting at Nationwide. This engaging conversation delves into the heart of pride, exploring personal meanings, celebrations, and the journey of being one's authentic self in the workplace. Discover insights on the essence of pride and its significance to our speakers. Celebratory acts that honor the spirit of pride, navigating corporate culture with authenticity, actionable items for allies eager to support and participate in pride events and employee resource groups, strategies for inclusive recruitment to foster a diverse workforce, engaging the LGBTQ+ community within the workplace and beyond, and navigating the pronouns with respect and sensitivity. This fireside chat is more than a conversation. It's a source of inspiration for allies and LGBTQ+ community members alike, offering practical advice and heartfelt stories. Tune in to be a part of the dialogue and celebrate diversity and encouragement, inclusivity at every level. Remember, this is more than just a webinar. It's a step towards understanding and embracing the vibrant tapestry of identities that enrich our professional and personal lives. Thank you for the time you are spending with us today, and we hope you enjoy this fireside chat.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name's Kimberly George, and I am the current president of the Alliance of Women in Workers' Compensation. And we have an amazing guest with us today. So fortunate to be able to discuss not just Pride Month, but DEI and how we can all be better allies to support our community here within the Alliance, at our companies, and in our greater community. So Nicole, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Kimberly. So excited to be here.
Why don't you share with our audience a little bit about your role at Nationwide and who you are?
Sure, of course, happy to. My name is Nicole Cabreriza. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a senior consultant with Nationwide Insurance, supporting our workers' compensation medical cost containment team. I've been with Nationwide since 2015. And I'm also very proud to currently serve on the national board of our Pride LGBTQ Associate Resource Group.
And just a little bit about Nationwide, Nicole. You're in workers' compensation, and I know Nationwide does so much. Could you just give us a snippet on your company?
Sure, of course, right? I think as I say Nationwide, I'm sure folks watching are maybe singing in their heads "On Your Side" back to me. Nationwide is a very diverse organization, right? Both within the personal line side of things, that's maybe where you know us best, whether it's your homeowners or auto insurance. But we also have a robust P&C side of the business, and workers' compensation, chiefly among that. I know. Just from anecdotally, as I'm engaged in the industry, folks may be surprised that Nationwide has the workers' compensation presence that we do, but we're definitely dedicated to building our stake, if you will, in the workers' compensation space, and happy to partner with the industry.
Yeah, Nicole's been a great mentor to me, but also a friend of the Alliance. So again, thank you for joining us today. And Pride is such a exciting month. We see parades all over the world, and there's so much more to Pride. And I think this is a great opportunity for us as a Alliance community to hear from you, Nicole, and for you and I to just have a real authentic conversation about Pride. So let's start off with what's Pride mean to you?
Yeah, Kimberly, it's such a great question because you're exactly right. We're smack dab in the middle of June, and so parades abound, fun, exciting activities and festivals are all over the place, and of course, it's the most fun component of Pride Month. But I like to ground myself when I think about what Pride is, within the history of Pride, right? Pride comes from from as a protest, right? Has a history of protest. The first Pride parades were held in 1970 on the year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising. So it really is considered to be sort of the modern birth of the LGBTQ rights movement. And so I think, when I think about Pride, I'm really holding in both hands that history of advocating for our rights, of pushing for equality, while also wanting to really hold space for progress, for the recognition of how far we've come. Right, the LGBTQ plus community right now, of course, faces many, many challenges, but I think it's really important, especially in Pride Month, for us to reflect on that progress.
Mm-hmm.
I just think personally of, this Pride Month is actually the 20th anniversary of my coming out. And when I think about, 20 years ago to today, the life that I have today would have been inconceivable to me 20 years ago. And 20 years, even with the gray hair, it's not that long of a time when we really think about it. And when you think about the amount of progress, when I came out in 2004, I was in college, I was, approaching graduation, and really struggled, thinking, well, gosh, how am I ever going to have a career and be out? Can I have a job and not get fired if somebody knows this about me? Marriage was completely off the table, right? There was conversation at that time of passing constitutional amendment to ban marriage equality.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so when I think about today, coming forward 20 years, where I have am fortunate to have a very engaging and fulfilling career. I get to do community work as an LGBTQ leader, and I'm happily married to my wife, and that's not something that I have to hide or obfuscate in order to have those other pieces. And so I think it's just an important time for us, individually and as a community, to reflect on that progress, and then think about the work that we can continue to do going forward to continue to move that dial.
Yeah, I really appreciate the seriousness and the celebration. Probably about 10 years ago, I was with friends of mine in London, and we went to a night before Pride dinner that was hosted by a dear friend's friend. And, we talked about, why Pride, Stonewall, and the meaning. And it was really heavy but loving, and so for me, such a learning opportunity. I was touched to be a part of that. And so when I think about Pride, even with my children who are now young adults, that's then how we began to think about Pride the night before they would go to a parade or, participate, to really help ground them, to use your words, in the meaning of Pride. And it wasn't just about going and wearing the beads and being
Even though
on
that's fun too,
fun.
right? We love the
Yeah.
beats, we love the parade. Like, lean in, enjoy, soak it up, right? It is such an important space of joy. I think that really, it can be easily lost too, especially in this day and age of the work to be done is important, but to do that, you've got to fulfill yourself and have those opportunities to be joyful and happy and celebrate.
And I'm sure our audience, felt that warmth as you talked about 20 years. How amazing that you had that courage. And then looking at how you're able to influence others, live your life, have an amazing relationship, and just very awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So one more thing on Pride, though. how do you celebrate? What does your Pride Month, or what's it consist of for you?
Yes, it's a great question. Sitting here today, it's June 18th. We're 3 weeks into Pride Month, and it has been joyful and incredible and very, very busy. Des Moines, I'm based in Des Moines, Iowa. We had our Pride weekend 2 weekends ago. Was fortunate to be able to go to the festival with my wife, walked with Nationwide in the parade. We had more participants than we've had historically in years and years. So it was wonderful to see, kind of in that post-COVID, people coming out and being involved, to see folks be connected. A few weeks ago, I also had an opportunity to travel to Columbus, Ohio, which is where Nationwide's main office is located. I attended the Human Rights Campaign Gala in Columbus, and we also had the honor of inviting Kelly Robinson, who is the president of the Human Rights Campaign, to Nationwide. So it was an incredible opportunity to have a similar conversation with Kelly, to be able to have an appreciation for, what's really at the heart of this conversation as well, right? How do we make workplaces work for all, and how do we lean meaningful into the work of DE&I and being able to really connect in meaningful ways? So it's been a busy, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's a great month. So let's turn the conversation to work. And when I think about the LGBTQ plus community and authenticity and showing up at work, how do you feel personally about your ability to show up as your authentic self? And then maybe add in some advice or thoughts around others that may not have a situation that's quite as inviting or welcoming as yours.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'll say, I think one of the potential misnomers of the idea of coming out is that you only come out once. And in lived reality for LGBTQ folks, it's often that you're coming out all of the time, right? At any new scenario, anytime you're meeting someone new, you're potentially encountering that process of whether it's safe or not safe to share your authentic selves with them. And so, I think about when I joined Nationwide in 2015, right? I did all my research, reading the website, getting a sense of what Nationwide's ethics and ethos were around DE&I and the LGBTQ plus community, right? And it's one thing to read something, and it's another thing, what the lived experience could be. And so walking in on my first day, I sat down with my manager to do introductions. And I remember this very vividly. He just very casually, mentioned that he was picking up his husband at the airport after work. And it just was such a simple act of hospitality, of saying, it's okay to be yourself. And it wasn't some grand pronouncement. It just was as casual as the conversation that we're having today. And that, I think, is really the way in which, we create those safe spaces and we bring others in. And I think it's a powerful avenue that allies can also travel, right? Thinking about the ways in which in our organizations we can signal to others that we are a safe space. And so, whether it is using your pronouns, in introduction of yourself, including those in your email signature, right? Those are puzzle pieces that we can do to help build organizations that allow folks to be their authentic selves. I have been out at work for a very long time, and certainly in my organization feel very comfortable that I can come and be my best professional authentic self on a daily basis. But that's not to say that I don't encounter new scenarios. I think about, engagement in industry events. That's still something that for me is a challenge to know who is a safe person. Where am I going to be invited in as the whole best professional self that I am, right? I want to be taken seriously for the skills and talents that I have. And I also, if we're part of our business is a relationship business, right? So as we build relationships, I don't want to be thinking in the back of my head, should I be using gender neutral language so that, talking about my spouse rather than my wife, because guessing about how the person across from me might react. So, I think it's around intentionality of how we create those spaces for folks, um, you know, for the LGBTQ plus community, and frankly for any marginalized community where professionals still may enter rooms and see no one else who looks like them.
hmm hmm That's really great. I love that um, conversation in the beginning of this answer where you referenced the interview and just saying, I'm picking my husband up, showing that you're an ally, showing that you're in the community. And I think sometimes it might be as an ally, well, then will somebody say, why she's saying that to me? And so I think that's some of what those of us that are allies have to get comfortable with. And she, her pronouns for me is an easy way to do that. I'm Kimberly George, she, her. I use the pronoun she, her. You're the one that helped me understand that. Now I see more people doing that outside of US than in US. But I think that is another great way that we can show our allyship. Yeah.
100%, right. And where we're not putting the onus on the LGBTQ person in the room to be doing that, I think is such a key as well. But, Kimberly, to your point, right, um, firmly feel one of my just general calls in life, if you will, is to the extent I can live into my truth, I know that creates space where others can feel empowered to live into their truth.
Yeah.
And you just never know who needs to see you doing that. So much of it can be invisible work. It can be over time, right? They don't need to just see you live your truth once. They need to see you live your truth consistently across multiple spaces, across, especially when we think about, right, work in the corporate world, for those of us who work in those type of organizations. I can think very clearly, historically in my career, there was a leader who I knew to be a member of the community, and they had received a promotion. And, in the organization, when someone's promoted, they send an email. It includes a bio about the individual, and their bio did not include a line about their spouse, which is historically a traditional part of that communication. And I knew this person had been with her husband for 25 years. So it was glaring to me, the omission of that. And that was a signal to me in that organization about whether it's safe at certain levels to be a member of the community. So, I think just thinking about how it is that we share and we don't share, right? I'm not telling folks to bring their whole selves to work, right? I don't bring my whole self to work, right? You don't want to see me in my baseball cap and some of my personal disorganization in my personal life in a professional setting, right? I want to bring my best professional, authentic self. So that means being able to, be honest and share my truth about being a member of the LGBTQ community. But it also means that I'm also bringing my professional acumen and my polish and the way in which I present myself in professional spaces. All of that has to be combined. So I think that's an important distinction that I often hear sort of referenced in this space when we're talking about DE&I and we're talking about inclusion specifically, right? I think it's dangerous advice if we're saying, bring your whole self here. Your whole self in a professional setting is probably not the right call, but your best professional self and your authentic self is maybe the better lighthouse to guide us towards.
Wow, what an aha moment I just had when you were discussing bringing your professional authentic self to work. I think we should all take that away, jot it down as leaders or as team members. That's something that I've struggled with for a number of years, not personally, but how to help people that say, I want to bring my whole self to work. And I use a scenario. I'm a country girl from Oregon. I love being on four-wheelers and dirt. And you wouldn't necessarily know that about me, but I'm not going to show up that way. So you bringing up your baseball cap, let's remember that. We should think about how we bring our most professional, authentic self to work, to be taken seriously, to be the leader and team member that we are. And that's brilliant. I love that. Really love that. Let's talk about Nationwide's employee resource group, your involvement, a little bit about what that is. I think it's fabulous that Nationwide's progressed so far, where some of our companies are beginning on those journeys and others might be thinking about what they mean.
Yeah, of course. Really proud of Nationwide's history in this space. Our employee resource group, we call them associate resource groups here at Nationwide, but tomato, tomato, is called Pride ARG. So we're at this Pride Month actually celebrating our 15th anniversary as a resource group, which is, I think when you look across the space, exactly to your point, Kimberly, recognize that organizations are in different parts on the continuum of this space. And so to be leading in terms of history here of how long we've been a group, we boast 1,100 associates as members of our associate resource group, both as members of the community and as allies across our 3 campus locations, and of course, a very robust virtual presence. And we really lean into, a mission of creating a space where folks can be their authentic selves and bringing value to our associates, our members, our allies, and our partners. So having that holistic view, not only in terms of the experiences that we're providing to our associates, which is incredibly important, but we're also really strongly leaning into the way in which we provide value to the business, right? At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're also looking at ways in which we can lift from an ROI in terms of business initiatives. So, this year alone, right, we've provided panel discussions on professional development and building your personal brand as an LGBTQ plus professional. We also do monthly either virtual coffee chats or in-person social gatherings for Pride Month. We walk in the Des Moines and the Columbus Pride parades. We also held a virtual Pride parade this year, which was incredibly fun. We asked folks to build a PowerPoint slide, creating a float, and then we threw all of those on a fig jam board and we took everyone across the country as a way, because we recognize that more and more our members are remote, right? There aren't as many people reporting to our physical campus locations. And even where folks live in proximity to our physical campus locations, they're primarily working from home. We're very fortunate at Nationwide to have what we call a success flex culture, meaning that if you're successful, you can flex in and out of the office if you're someone who's within a campus location, as it makes sense for your business unit and as your business unit is achieving its goals. So
wow.
We really are focused on meeting our members where they are. And I think the beautiful gift of the virtual environment that we're able to harness now more than ever is that our members get to meet folks that they otherwise would never have had the opportunity to connect with. I know personally, one of my best friends at work is someone that I met through Pride ARG, and he lives in Columbus. We would have never found each other but for the associate resource group and but for the opportunity to connect virtually. And I think again, where you're balancing both the moral imperative, it's the right thing to do to be building these spaces for associates and employees. And it's also the right business decision, right? I think it's proven time and again that employees who are engaged in employee resource groups are more dedicated, more engaged, and more likely to stay with your organization. And again, where we really are leaning into right, we want to build the social connection, but we want to equip our members for the professional skill building education and opportunities that are going to help take them to the next level in their career.
That leads me right into thinking about how your ARG, it must be associate resource group. Is that your terminology?
Yes.
Perfect. How your ARG may assist, or even the awareness of it may support your recruitment of talent. Have you seen anything along those lines yet? Are you involved with onboarding if somebody signs up to your group, or how do you think about that? Either the ARG with attracting talent or attracting diverse talent, specifically the LGBTQ plus community generally.
Yeah, so I'll say that, I think the ARG is a robust example of how Nationwide lives into its values in this space. So from a recruiting perspective, I would say that LGBTQ plus folks are online sleuths, right? If I'm thinking about going to a new place, a new space, maybe joining a new organization, I'm going to read everything on the internet that I can get my hands on to make sure that I understand your organization. The other piece of that is that I'm going to look for signs everywhere to see, are you actually living into the things that your website says that you uphold? So if your website is a boilerplate DE&I statement, but then I look at your LinkedIn and there really isn't anything showing me that you're walking the walk while you're talking the talk, I'm not as likely to be able to even consider that's an organization I want to be a part of, whether that's something within the community or a potential new employer. I think for Nationwide, our Pride Associate Resource Group is something that is present in our socials. And as an associate, once you join Nationwide, if we have associates that we've got a really cool new online platform that we leverage for our associate resource groups, makes it easier than ever for folks to join. And we have automated messages that immediately go out if somebody shows interest, that tells them exactly how it is that they can engage with us. It sends all the existing event invites to their inbox. So it really presents an easy lift for someone to be able to attend an event for the first time, and then be able to engage from there. And I'll say that, I think it's any sort of ERG, ARG, especially this time of year, right? If your organization's socials are showing your employee resource group or associate resource group walking in pride parades or doing some volunteer work around the LGBTQ plus community, those are ways in which just setting the stage to show folks that, yes, you are an affirming organization and you walk the walk in this space too.
Yeah, I love that. That's, I think, really helpful. And I know our audience is probably taking notes on that as well. Let's talk allies for a minute. I know we've touched on allies throughout our conversation, but get real on allies participating. They Sometimes there's an awkwardness, and for those that know me, I say get comfortable with the uncomfortable, because the richness and the joy that will come from it, the experiences, are so powerful. But give me your thoughts on allyship, and whether it's across your ARG, an organization like the Alliance, or the community. How can allies not only engage, but really be valued and a good support?
It's such a great question, Kimberly, because I do not envy the role that allies have in this space, right? It's really, really difficult, and it can be really scary, if I can say. And allies are so critical to the work that we do, either from an ARG perspective or just broadly in the community, right?
Yeah.
And yet, when we invite allies into spaces, right, there's that balance of, as an ally, right, you want to learn, you want to know how to be a good ally. And we also don't want to put upon those within the community and marginalized folks the responsibility of teaching you how to be a good ally, right? And we've talked about this. How do you know if no one will show you? How do you figure that out? And so I think, your words around getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is really spot on, because, right, we're all going to make mistakes in this space. And I'll say, queer people make mistakes in this space. The LGBTQ plus community is broad, wide-ranging, and diverse. And so there are parts of the community as well, right? I'm a cisgender woman, lesbian. The experience of transgender folks is something that is new to me as well. And so it's something that I also have to learn, educate, and position myself appropriately to be an ally. So
Yeah.
a few pieces of thoughts I suppose I have in this space is just learning that barometer, if you will, of as an ally in the space, the times in which it's important and appropriate to stand next to LGBTQ plus people, the time and space in which it's appropriate to stand in front and be protective of LGBTQ plus people, and the
Mm-hmm.
time in which it's appropriate to stand behind and
Mm-hmm.
center and allow for LGBTQ plus voices to be the primary voice in the space. And
Yeah.
from a professional setting, I think about, if let's say, Kimberly, you and I are in a meeting together and we hear someone say something that is homophobic. If you and I don't say something, but then maybe you just send me an email after the encounter and say, gosh, that was terrible, Nicole, I'm so sorry that you heard that. Um, that's not an example of good allyship, right?
Yeah.
It's putting the onus on me to be able to raise it as an issue. And though I understand you're supportive, right, the moment to provide support was the moment in which that was happening.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
right, but then as I think, LGBTQ plus individuals, I think the responsibility on our side in terms of allyship, if you will, from my perspective, is to offer grace, right? We're human, we're gonna make mistakes. And to the extent that we're learning, growing, and doing better the next time it happens. So, in
Yeah.
that example, if we happen to find ourselves in another setting together and something like that happens, and then you're the person who speaks up and calls out what's wrong is wrong, uh,
Yeah.
that's the growth that we're looking for in this space. And so,
Yeah.
my advice to allies would be to just find your foothold, find what feels comfortable to you as a starting point in the space, whether it is joining your employee resource group at your organization if one exists. If it's engaging in a community event, right? For Pride Month, there are plenty of opportunities that abound. But of course, Pride is more than just June. So if there are local organizations that you're particularly passionate about, looking to see if there are volunteer opportunities or opportunities to connect, I think those can be great initial starting points to build
Yeah.
that comfort level and find what the right balance is for you in terms of allyship.
Yeah, I really, there's so many good nuggets in there. I'm going to go back and listen to this. I promise. It's really good. But one of the things that you shared is that you too are an ally. See, I think putting people in this box and the LGBTQ plus community, which has so many nuances and can feel very individual, if you will, depending on who you're engaging with. I think just remembering we're all in this. We are all allies. And as an ally, I would say the onus is on us. We need to have grace within the community, knowing that we're trying to learn. But as an ally, ask, how can I show up for you? When I said that Nicole is a mentor to me, it's because I went to Nicole and said, wow, I'm really impressed. I am an ally and I want to learn. And then the onus is on me to put myself out there. We've talked about trans and pronouns. And to be honest, my fear of not wanting to hurt feelings or come across offensively for sure, but also how I can show up. And so when we think about our women of color and people of color, and we've talked at the Alliance and really dug into, if you see that they've raised their hand and not been called on, you be the ally to say, let this person speak, and say their hand was up. They were trying to speak. And Nicole, you and I have had similar conversations, but we have to, if we want to be an ally, we've got to do the work. We've got to listen. And then we've got to follow through to be the consistent ally. And so while I asked you that question, it would not, and you were fabulous in your response beyond what I envisioned. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody that was within the LGBTQ plus community said, well, you're the ally, you tell me. But I think this open conversation where both of us have experience, you certainly live this and have to come out repeatedly as you've described, but how can we together be honest and real and help those that want to join us?
Completely, right? I think it's a commitment to continuous learning. And particularly, as you talked about, right, the LGBTQ plus community being diverse and intersectional, and right, as someone who is an elder millennial, the younger members of the community, right, are raising and changing and expanding our understanding of things like gender identity and sexual orientation. And it's something that, right, I learn alongside allies as well. And I think it's about having that openness and that vulnerability to say, I don't know, or this is new to me, but I want to learn, right? Where folks engage in good faith to want to learn, continually engage, and be able to move forward and do better as we know better. I think that's the sweet spot, if you will.
Yeah. And I would just encourage all of us within the Alliance, whether we're in a virtual event, we see each other in person, to take this conversation today and really think about then how we make our Alliance the diverse, inclusive organization that we want it to be. Are we helping not only those people within the Alliance, like Nicole and so many others, feel this is their space? They belong. Their voice matters. They are with us. We are with them. But also how we can bring more within the LGBTQ plus community along. And I realize, Nicole, in this statement that there are ARGs, there are ways in which the LGBT plus community has amazing support, but I also feel like what the Alliance brings with the personal, professional development, the networking, lifting up individuals and their careers, that we have space, and I don't know that we've done a great job. And any advice you have, I mean, there's so much advice that's already come through today, but anything specific you want to share?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Kimberly. I think it's not a question of we can have this or we can have that. I think both from an ARG, ERG perspective, and then the more dedicated professional settings, right, for workers' compensation professionals who are also members of the LGBTQ plus community. I do feel strongly that an organization like the Alliance is a really important space to be able to be connected with folks that will help us to build and learn our skills within the industry and craft that we're dedicating our professional lives to. I think this is where I would, call out the importance of mentorship and sponsorship, exactly as you highlighted there, right? As we look towards what our professional goals are, it is, of course, just across the board so fundamentally important, the place and space for mentorship or sponsorship, just full stop. But
Yeah.
certainly for members of marginalized communities, for LGBTQ plus folks, even I
Yeah.
get tongue tied sometimes trying to spit it all out. Uh, it can be even more critical, right?
Yeah.
Having mentors, being able to be connected and have the ability to, be able to reach folks that we would know not otherwise have access to be able to be in the room where it happens that we maybe would not be able to access, but for those relationships, right? Again, it's the work that we do is noble and important, and it is in a lot of ways foundationally relationship based.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
to be able to build relationships, to build connections that with folks that otherwise we might not be able to be connected with, I think the Alliance really serves an important part of that. And I think conversations like ours today, right? I think it goes back to, kind of that theme of visibility, right?
Mhm.
To be able to feel like you can be in a space. I think sometimes it's just recognizing that others like you are in that space too, right?
Yeah.
And so to be able to continue to build that larger coalition, to be able to show again the intersectionality of our community, right? Right. We are not just women as a monolith. under women as a term is a beautiful, intersectional, multifaceted composition of incredibly talented professionals, right? We all identify as a multiplicity of things that create the individuals that we are today. And the Alliance, I think, can have an opportunity to raise up all of those pieces to show how we all interconnect together to be able to lift each other up.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So the Alliance does have a DEI committee. For those of you in the audience that may not know, Nina Smith, a board member of the Alliance and an executive at Inlight, leads that. We have an amazing mentoring program going on right now, the first of its kind. People raised their hand that wanted to be mentors, and then people that are mentees that said, I want to further my career. And it was an amazing match process that took place at the National Work Comp Conference in Vegas. For those of you that can attend, and we will be filming it, so those virtual would be able to see it as well. We're going to recognize those mentors and mentees and share some experiences about the program. I do want, it wouldn't be me if I didn't have a call to action, would really love your ideas around the LGBTQ plus community. We're spending a lot of time as part of our strategic planning process at the board, spending a lot of time thinking about community circles or families and how we can really dig in and be more supportive. And Nicole's given some of her ideas and will be very helpful to us on around the LGBTQ plus community. But raise your hand if you're interested. Let us know, what ideas do you have? Whether it's recruiting people into the Alliance and inviting them in, whether it's content or how we might move forward in 2025 and beyond with this idea. You'll hear much more about that in time, and not just about the LGBTQ plus community, but I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. This is a community we all want to belong. And so the more we provide our input and share our ideas, raise our hands to volunteer, I think the better. And I think our time is winding down, Nicole. I would love your final thoughts on whether it's Pride, the Alliance, supporting the LGBTQ plus community. It's all yours.
Thank you, Kimberly. I think this conversation has been so broad ranging, and I hope there are takeaways for folks. If there's one thing that you hear me say today, I hope it's that the things happen when we show up, right? And I know it can be scary and I know it can be intimidating, but if you show up, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to ask questions. I am always happy to be a resource to folks. And I know that there are many others who are engaged in the work who are happy to help you find a safe space in figuring out either if you are a member of the community, know that this industry is an industry that is for you. When we think about the changing demographics of the workforce, we are the future of work. We will comprise almost a third of the population as Gen Z comes into the workforce. That's a powerful force that for employers and organizations, to think about what the future of work looks for you, and how it is that you would recruit the next generation of talent. Just know that the LGBTQ community will inherently be one of the larger segments of your talent base. And so where we can lean into resources like the Alliance, associate resource groups, and again, just raising and providing opportunities for folks to be able to learn and grow and become leaders within our industry and our organizations, I think is so critical. And the last maybe thing I'll quickly touch on, because I know this is such a common question that I get, and I think we touched on it a little, but pronouns, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
many folks are intimidated and scared, and it is Understandable, right? It is, I think, a new part of our vernacular that we are getting comfortable with. And I was talking with my wife about this actually last night, because we both admittedly, right, try to be intentional when we're in larger settings to introduce ourselves with our pronouns. But we were at a gala on Friday night, and we were in a group and did not use our pronouns, and then noticed that everyone else in the group introduced themselves with pronouns. And it was a learning experience for us, right, of learning how to integrate this into how it is
Yeah.
that we interact. And so one thing that I would encourage for folks, right, LGBTQ folks are not the authorities on this, right? We also are learning and making mistakes and trying to do better as we learn and grow. I would say if you're a leader of a meeting, right, we're so often in meetings, right, where you ask for those sort of basic demographics, right? Who are you? How long have you been with the organization? What's your role? Add pronouns to that roll call, right? It's such an easy thing to normalize as we, are bringing folks together, that then will just become as commonplace as talking about what your job title is and what it is that you do. Sharing your pronouns is such an easy thing as well in your email signature. It signals to others that interact with you that you are a safe space as well. And again, I touch back on, you never know who needs to see that in your email signature. You never know who needs to hear you introduce yourself with your pronouns. That gives them the courage to live authentically into their truth, and creates a stickiness, right? For those of us who are leaders in our organization, you never know who is in your organization that needs to see those things, that helps them buy in and believe in the culture and stay and engage. So I think I see it as an act of hospitality, right? For those of us who are parts of faith communities, hospitality is a real tenet of how I live into my faith. And I see sharing my pronouns and creating that safe space as an act of hospitality I can extend to others. So
Yeah.
hopefully that can sort of help maybe turn the dial down on some of the angst or anxiety around that. It's okay to make mistakes, just learn and do better next time.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. I'm sure many of you want to know how you can hear more from Nicole. She will actually be on the Alliance Industry Panel at our WCI Leadership Workshop. So at WCI in August, we will be discussing talent, DEI, building inclusive communities, and that will be filmed and rebroadcast for those of you that cannot be in Orlando with us in August. So, Nicole, thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation. It was heartwarming. It helped me learn. You're so engaging and wonderful to share your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's always such a delight to connect with you. I feel like um, my heart grows in connection, and I hope folks take the inspiration from the way in which, right, a member of the community and an ally are able to have this conversation, learn from each other, and then be able to take that back, not only personally but to share with others, right? And I am deeply invested in the work that the Alliance does and the work that we're able to do, not only just in integrating the LGBTQ community as part of the conversation, but again, how we can all lift each other up as members and leaders in this industry.
Well, we're grateful to have you. And to all of you in the audience, give yourself a round of applause. Thank you for joining this conversation today. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of the community, the Alliance community, the LGBTQ plus community, and a community that cares and really does want to have our DNA include DEI. And I think we just have to be consistent and take that tip of getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. I promise you it's worth it. I want to give my last shout out to our corporate sponsors. Without you, the Alliance would not be. We appreciate your continued support for our mission, our followers, and the ability to grow and touch more people within risk management and workers' compensation. Thank you, thank you. And to all I hope we're able to see each other soon.